Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the idea of grovelling. This is professional grovelling, you'll see amongst public servants, among politicians or captains of industry, that sort of thing. I mean, you can have lower level grovelling of all sorts, but this is the sort of grovelling that is where you prostrate yourself and embarrass yourself and get on your belly and crawl around in order to get something. It could be maybe it's a well-paying job or a prestigious job or maybe a government contract, all of the above. And so there's certainly a payout or a payoff for the grovelling, assuming it works. I mean, one of the concerns I always had, like in it from an architectural point of view, is that what happens if you grovel your ass off and you still don't get what you want? Then you've got that embarrassment and self-abasement and humiliation that you went through all for nothing. So I'd want to be pretty confident there was a good payoff at the end of it. But anyway, that's only me. Now, there are certain people that are attracted to power and attracted to prestige who don't believe they should have to earn it through hard work and producing results and being well thought of as being the foremost professionals in their field. Most of the people around those big sort of patronage machine, they flock to the patronage machine. So someone who has the power to say, yep, you can have the job, whether the person's qualified or not or whatever, yep, you can have the job. And that attracts a certain sort of person that is I wouldn't call them sort of good salesmen or something. It's not that. They're prepared to engage in a level of self-abasement that makes the patronage giver feel or gives them a sense of being all-powerful and look how much this person is crawling to me. Look how powerful I must be. That means I'm a fantastic, I'm someone of the first consequence, and this person's making me feel really good because they're crawling, they're crawling their ass off, and that sort of thing. So it attracts certain people, and it takes the patronage givers like to be flattered. If they're not going to give the job to somebody, assuming it's within their gift to give a job of some sort, but they're not going to give the job to somebody on any form of merit, or it'll be minimal if it is, and they're going to instead want something in return. That can be a glorification of their vanity, their ego. It can be a corrupt payoff, or it can be, you have to do me favors now and you have to employ my family members on big bucks in the organization. So I was in a situation where, and this is like a close-up example, I think this is the first one where I saw at this level. This is a job in a sort of government quango type thing. It's not quite a quango. It's more a tightly controlled government cartel. So, somebody with an IQ of minus 10 million as the CEO would still return the same profitable outcome as anyone else, because it's a cartel with pretty much fixed prices and fixed areas. So there's no competition, and it's easy to make bonds or profits. And the CEOs get paid 10, 20, 30 million dollars with their stock options and their salaries and their benefits and so on. So it's very prestigious and pays a shitload of money. The contracts they give are usually for 3 years. So one contractor there, assume you were living at the lower levels of the extravagant scale, you'd never need to work again, and you'd never have to worry about money again. And it provides the opportunity for all sorts of corrupt dealings in land and property speculation and the like. So I'm at this sort of gathering, and the particular government, I think it was the senior public servant, who's the guy who signs off on who gets the job, is there. And one of the guys who wants the job is there. He's managed to get himself invited to this thing, and for the sole purpose so he can, as they would tamely namely, say, lobby the senior public servant to get the money. And this guy, who would have been, I don't know, at the time about 50, early 50s, and he's got a PhD in sociology, so it'll sort of tell you enough about him there, I guess. But he wants the job. He wants this super well-paying job where all he's got to do is front the cameras a couple of times a year, sound big and tough, and he can walk away with his $25 million paycheck each year, and again, have access to superb levels of and incredibly profitable types of property speculation, which will easily triple or quadruple his the value of his income. So he's there, and no, I first saw him, and he's like anybody who's prepared to crawl and engage in a level of self-abasement for the power and prestige of the job and the money. He's vicious and cruel to other people around him. He actually hates himself for having to engage in this level, but he realized he hasn't got the talent or the ability to get the job. All he's got is the personal sort of social connections to get himself invited to the right parties and so on. So he's lobbying this guy, or crawling. The guy is he's not on his knees, he's on his belly crawling along, sucking this guy's toes and kissing his feet and everything. And it was actually painful to watch. I couldn't watch it. It was, you're looking at something, you can't look away, but it was almost a horrid spectacle of watching this guy engage. But it was almost a horrid spectacle of watching this guy engage in levels of self-abasement that I would consider unthinkable. But nonetheless, he's doing it. And while I was watching him, I thought, well, would I do that for a $20 million a year paycheck? And I was sort of tossing up. The mere fact I was tossing it up was I suppose one thing, but I probably wouldn't. If the guy guarantees, look, you're guaranteed, Billy Bob, you can have this gig with all this money, all these benefits, but you have to spend 2 hours crawling around on your belly and following me around the party or something. But I guarantee you at the end of this, I probably would, if that was the tightness of the guarantee. So for that self-abasement, I would be a rich man. I don't have to worry about anyone else. But in return for this, he's obviously got to, if he gets the job, he's obviously got to, well, these are the favors you have to now return. I was able to convince a lot of people not to oppose your appointment to this role, but we now have a number of powerful people that all want their sons, daughters, wives, uncles, aunts, mistresses, and cousins all employed in this place, and you have to make sure that jobs are being given them. You also have to make sure that they have access to these very profitable real estate speculation deals. They can borrow money at no interest, and you have to fix all that up. And so in return for this, there are many favors you must now return to us, because we've either A, made it possible for you to get the job, or haven't opposed your appointment, which is just as important when you're in these big time patronage gigs. So anyway, the guy's doing all this crawling, and I thought, with that level of self-abasement, the public servant guy who seemed a little uncomfortable. Now he was getting off on the power of it all, but he seemed a little uncomfortable. I thought the crawler guy had overplayed his hand, and so I was just watching the interplay there. Anyway, a few weeks go by, and I'm reading the business press, business pages, and sure enough, this guy's picture appears on the front page. He's got the gig. He's been appointed to the gig that he was spending all his time on the floor, crawling, kissing feet. He actually got the job, so it did pay off. He had a press conference. And some of the journalists sort of said, well, gee, this is a bit odd. You're not really qualified for this. How did you get it? And he insisted, I am qualified. I'm the best person for this job. And he was very defensive, very chip on the shoulder about it, because clearly he wasn't qualified. So I guess appointing him to that gig, or letting him have it, meant that he had to return many, many favors to do that. So really, they put a compliant little stooge flunky in there. He was going to look after various government people and other people, and international people. And you see a sudden upsurge in the cousin of a very senior, Chinese politician suddenly gets a very important job in this place, and so it wasn't just a paying off the local heavies; it was paying off international heavies. So this guy was directed to make sure hundreds upon hundreds of favors were delivered. So this is all part of the quid pro quo. We'll put an idiot into that role, but gee, they better do what the fuck they're told. And I'm sure if he'd said, "Well, no, I've got the job now. You can shove these favors where the sun don't shine," I'm sure they would have found a frail, little tiny woman with a torn blouse who said, "Oh, he raped me," or kilos of white powder would suddenly appear in his laundry. All that sort of stuff would have. So he had to play along, but in return, he'll never need to work again. As it turned out, not only was he getting the handsome salary of many ancillary benefits, but again, he had very extensive real estate dealings during his tenure, and all of which were absolutely uncanny. He had an uncanny ability to buy absolute rock bottom prices and be able to sell to offshore Chinese investors for absolute premium prices, well beyond the market. So he made several tens of millions on property speculation during this time. So he entered into that role worth a couple of $1 million, and he exited the role worth $70+ million. So I'll give you an idea of how well he did there. But he's part of that glitterati sort of class. But anyway, that's so when you're looking at the grovelling and so on, what's the extent? Now, your circumstances can affect it. If you've got mortgages and dependent family members and school fees and car payments, and there's a certain amount of if not grovelling, a certain amount of job aggravation you're prepared to accept. And I've been sitting reporting to the board of directors, and one some of them, or the board has decided, or someone on the board wanted me to pursue a certain sort of policy or course of action, or do certain things. I warned that it wouldn't work out very well. They insisted, "Hey, Billy Bob, just do what the fuck you're told." You have the job of EVP at our pleasure. So don't give us back chat. Don't you do what the fuck you're told, buddy. And you get that sometimes, particularly with like socialite, useless, wasteful socialite board members who don't even know what day it is. They're more likely to be the ones that get heavy, or they fancy themselves as high-powered deal makers, that type of thing. So when you're at those sort of meetings, and the thing they told you to do didn't work out as you said it wouldn't, and so they then blame you for it and try and say it was your idea, or you wanted to do it. It was your idea to do it, and look what's happened. I'm going to really think twice before I sign off on your bonus at the end of the year. And Billy Bob, I'm not happy with this. I've got some real concerns. I don't know if you're really the right man for the job, and all these sort of jibes and so on. Fuck. And like, what you really want to say is, why don't you shut up, you fucking moron? You don't know what the fuck you're on about. Why don't you fuck off? You like inside, you're sort of thinking those things. What would you know? You've never had a job in your life. You fucking because the guy's inherited millions, and so, but you can't say that. You'd be out on the street seconds later if you did. And now you thought, when you're in those sort of situations, the thought goes through your mind of all the bills you have to pay, of all the invoices that are coming in the front door, and you've got to service the income you need to do it. If I walked out the door now and told that prick to fuck off, I've got enough money to last for a fortnight. These calculations, or calculations like that, go through your head, and so you have to. Okay. You're quite right, Jimmy Jack. I did, and then you find yourself if not groveling, certainly doing a job of it, trying to put on a childlike face, the manga cartoon eyes, and begging forgiveness for your really bad things you did, and if you crawl enough, I found in those situations, "Oh, I'm so sorry, you're quite right." When I get more experience and I reach a level of your brilliance, Jimmy Jack, then I'm sure I won't make those mistakes. And I apologise to everybody, and I have let the team down. And that's how bad of me. And as long as you prostrate yourself for long enough, and you'll see the look, because Jimmy Jack doesn't want to take the blame himself. You'll see the look on Jimmy Jack's face relax and become softer. It's quite hostile, soft. When he sees you, once you've prostrated and begged forgiveness and done that little, I'm just a little child, daddy, please don't be rough on me. You do that type of thing. Then you see the look on the face will soften, not just of him, but the other board members, because they had a chat about this at the golf club on the weekend, and so they'll soften and go, okay, well, you're contrite enough. You've begged our forgiveness. You've grovelled to achieve our forbearance, and so all right. Well, look, I think we can move on from this, Billy Bob. I think you understand our concerns, and I'm sure it won't happen again, and I hope it doesn't. And if it does, then we'll have to discuss taking further action. So that the threats there, they still continue to sort of threaten you as they're moving on to another subject. And then you have to stay quiet for a little while during the rest of the meeting, because you come forward confidently with ideas or commentary or even reporting on the finances of the previous month or something. If you do that, then they'll assume that you're challenging them, you're defying them again. So you have to pretend to be suitably chastened, and that you don't your confidence and your self-assurance has been knocked for six, and you just have to sit there meekly nodding and blushing and so on for just a while afterwards, until they accept that you've been put in your damn place. Now, once you're through that, then and even at the end of the meeting, you sort of stare at the floor or look down at the ground in clearly guilty at your wickedness, and again assuring them that they have the power and you're just a little child in the presence of their greatness, this type of thing. And then you can move on, and by the next meeting it's all forgotten, and everyone smiles, and there's back slaps all around, these sort of things. So grovelling has its place, I guess, based on your circumstances. Now, I'm sort of less inclined to do it, grovelling. And what's the fine line between sort of grovelling and showing exceptional levels of deference? Remember, your boss is probably a pretty insecure person. I mean, if they're an affirmative action appointment, they're going to be mega insecure. So grovelling and prostration is the only thing you can really do. If you're a professional and they're not, it's the only thing you can really do to put them at ease and let them relax enough that they'll stop. Their heart rate will come down to a level where they're not in sort of virtual panic mode, trying to attack you for making them feel bad and inferior or something like that. So you have to consider those type of things as well. So grovelling and self-abasement, do they have their place, and are they really relevant? Should they be relevant? I think their relevance is increasing, because the amount of people, certainly that I come across at least, the amount of people that are qualified in their jobs, qualified to do their jobs, that are appointed on merit, is decreasing at a rapid rate. So the chances are very, very high that I'm going to encounter someone in business who is an affirmative action appointment of one sort or another, race, gender, whatever. And so it's very rare that the people at the sort of lower end maybe are qualified, but in particularly where there's a bureaucratic administrative type structure like human resources and diversity, inclusion departments, these sorts of things, none of the people there have achieved their jobs on any sort of merit. They're there because they're ideological fanatics, or they've got the right contacts or something within that wider sort of NGO activist sphere. So that's why they've got the jobs. So when you have to deal with people like that, and which increasingly you do, there's very few areas of business now where you don't have to deal with a diversity type person. Even in administration of commercial contracts, things like that, these people are getting more and more involved in that, and so you're coming across these low IQ, unqualified, people, race, gender quota type people, and so the grovelling factor is increasing. I would say. I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested in seeing your comments below, but certainly by my estimation, it's increasing. I saw I was just close to a meeting recently, watching two other people meet. Now there was the guy who was the boss, who was a brown guy, possibly gay, although I'm not sure. And the guy who was reporting to him, or was interacting with him, I'm not exactly sure the capacity of either one, was a straight white guy, and seemed quite pleasant. And the straight white guy seemed to know his stuff. The chances of a straight white guy being professional in their job is far greater than any brown or black person or minority. Doesn't mean that every one of them is, but many of them are. So I was watching them, and the white guy was quite confident, with a lot of confidence, self-assurance, was explaining what was in some report or something like that, as best I can gather. And he was, he had a pleasant sort of smile on his face. He was certainly going out of his way, as I perceived, at least, to be pleasant and personable. But the brown guy, again, affirmative action appointment, quite clearly, he was put out by this. You're not showing me respect enough. You have to show me extra respect. And if you have high self-assurance because you're competent, capable, and you've been appointed by merit, then I'm going to feel bad because I'm not appointed by merit. So I'm going to make sure you damn well grovel until I feel good that I've got the power in this interaction. And it's quite pathetic and chip on shoulder and all that sort of stuff. But these sort of interactions are really the norm now. They didn't used to be, but they are now. And it's caused by affirmative action. And the consequences of this, of course, are loss in productivity and loss in professionalism are profound, and they're making us all much poorer as a consequence. So the way the brown skin guy dealt with this was to constantly ask the white guy to repeat everything. What was that? So what do you mean? What are you saying? Say that again. So what are you saying? And just went over and over. So the white guy had to constantly repeat himself again and again, sometimes 3, even 4 times on each point he was making. Now, it started to wear a little bit thin, and the white guy started to become a little irritated. And as soon as he started to become irritated and impatient, obviously when he's being prodded and poked like that, then the brown guy you could see the brown guy start to feel a sense of power. I've managed to irritate you. I now have the power in this interaction. That's how pathetic it was. And this would have been a guy in his 40s, the brown guy in his 40s. The white guy is probably a similar age group, I would think. But this is the sort of stuff that goes on. Then the white guy realized if he's going to get anywhere with this, the real politic of the moment was he was going to have to engage in some form of self-abasement in order to get what he wanted out of the situation. Now, this is a thing. Is this self-abasement, or is this an act of real politic? So, well, this is what I need to do to get what I want. So he does he lowers his head and he does the wide eyes and even manages to manufacture a blush, which maybe was him trying to contain his irritation and annoyance, and start to sort of speak almost with a little humble little boy lisp or little girl lisp or something, and until the brown guy stopped his sort of antagonistic behavior. But the brown goes, I'm only going to stop my antagonistic behavior if you grovel and prostrate yourself. Otherwise, I'm not going to listen to you, and you're not going to get what you want. So damn well grovel to me and make me feel big and powerful, and damn it, then I might think about it. So that's what happened there. But the white guy's prepared to do it. Now, in the reality of the situation, if he'd not done that, he wouldn't have got what he wanted. The white guy wouldn't have got what he wanted. So Was it grovelling or was it real politic? And is this form of grovelling how it is now? I would assert that it's now become institutional. If you're white and straight and know what you're doing, grovelling is the only way you're going to be able to navigate your way through this miasma of affirmative action. Being a Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.